Welcome. We're so happy to have you here for what we consider to be an extremely important meeting. My name is Susan Morgan. I'm the founder and director of Indivisible Marin. I know a lot of you, but we've also had a lot of new members recently, which is fabulous. So if we haven't met, I'm just really grateful to have you here today. So Betty, with that, if you could start the slides, that would be great. Yes, so this is our kickoff to Turnout to Win, which is a new initiative that Indivisible Marin leaders have been working on very hard over the last month or so. And it will be the primary focus for Indivisible Marin. And we hope for all of you for the next 4 months up until November 3rd. And the gist of it is that it is important, and we'll lay out all the reasons over the course of the meeting, to dramatically increase the people power working on the voter outreach work. So by people power, we mean us, we mean volunteers, we mean the number of people making calls, writing postcards, etc. We need that to be bigger than it's been in the past so that we can win more votes to be assured of taking back Congress in November. And we'll outline a lot of reasons why there's that increased urgency and increased need for volume of volunteers and volume of voters. So I'm going to speak briefly about the why for Turnout to Win, which I'll hit a few key points, which is essentially is that we believe we are in a national emergency and that what is needed is a massive civilian response. That choice of word may seem a little odd, but I will get to why we're using the word civilian in this case. And the overall goal is having Democrats overperform at the polls on November 3rd. And then I'm going to turn it over to Veronica of our steering committee, who will walk through the heart of the program. She was a key player in developing this whole concept, and she'll walk you through the strategy and approach, and also a lot of tools we've developed and perks we've developed for people who choose to join the Turnout to Win team, which of course we're hoping most of you will be wanting to do by the end of this meeting. Then Lori will outline voter outreach tactics, like specifically what type of voter outreach work is available and how does each tactic work and what's the impact of the various tactics. And then we've asked a few volunteers who have done those tactics, who have postcarded, who have canvassed, who have phone banked, to share just a little bit of their personal experience of what it's like to volunteer in those areas. Then we'll wrap and have a Q&A. Next slide, please. So I really don't think it's an overstatement to say that we are in a national emergency, and the root of it is that fascism, it's a fight between fascism versus democracy, led by Donald Trump, who is steering America toward fascism. And this shows up in many ways. I've tried to summarize a few of the key ways this is showing up. It's by his expansion of executive power and subsequently reduction of congressional power and authority. It shows up in the aggressive immigration enforcement tactics that we have seen previously in police states. It is pressure on institutions that in a healthy, functioning democracy provide oversight to the executive branch. And now he's even increasingly using the government against his perceived personal opponents. And very importantly, related to the midterms, he is doing his best to practice unfair election-related interventions. So all of this has led us to a national emergency that we believe requires massive civilian response. Next slide, please. I thought it would be helpful to reminisce a bit about the time period during World War II, where there was also a fascist threat of Hitler. This was an international emergency, but the response, I mean, first of all, the tens of thousands of men and women that went to foreign lands to risk their lives and their limbs and be apart from their family in grueling conditions, they made the ultimate sacrifice. But the people at home also felt a civic duty, and I wanted to say joyfully may be a bit of a stretch, but they, with their heart enthusiastically, showed up. The women went to work in factories to keep products and services, you know, rolling. Everyone was facing strict food rations, all kinds of limitations, really, on a normal way of life. This woman in the upper left, this photo really captured my heart. She sent 8 sons to war. They all came back, but it just shows the level of sacrifice and how people were willing to upend their lives for the fight. And the woman, the illustrated woman in the front, captures it well. Of course I can. Of course I can do these things because it's my civic duty and our country is in distress. Next slide, please. So this is how it can look this year in 2026. And it's what's needed is that same mindset of a civilian response to fascism. It's the yes, I can phone bank. I don't really like to, but yeah, I can do that. I can write postcards. I can knock on doors. I can spend a Saturday in the Central Valley because it's my civic duty. This is very time limited. We've only got 4 months to go. So if we can all get that mindset of, yes, I'm going to do what I can do to get my country back on track, because the midterms are a beyond existential opportunity. We don't take back the House. He's going to just continue on this path unchecked for 2 years. So we have to do this. We have to make it happen. And this is how it's going to happen, is so many Americans stepping up and doing voter outreach work. Next slide, please. I get a little passionate about this. So some of you may be thinking, why is all of this work needed when Trump's numbers are in the tank and when every day we read about how he did something else to alienate the average American, to alienate many of the members of his own Republican Party? Aren't we just going to have a natural blue wave? Yes, it's a yes, and yes, I think we will have a natural blue wave. However, they are doing a lot of things to cheat. We read about it all the time. You know, Trump and his SAVE Act, which thankfully doesn't have a chance, but it would have totally disrupted voter access. There's other attempts they'll try with voter suppression, voter intimidation at the polls, US mail restrictions. We read about them all the time. I think probably all of us, our stomach turns in knots like, oh my God, are they going to steal this election? Well, no, they're not. And we can't overreact because there are a lot of checks if you have noticed over the last couple of weeks, federal court judges have slapped down quite a number of these crazy attempts. And there are also state secretaries of state, there are local and state election officials, there are a lot of pro-democracy groups like Mark Elias's group doing work to limit the cheating. And they will, I think they will prevent a massive, rigging of the elections. However, it doesn't mean they're going to prevent every aspect of the cheating that could sneak through. So we can't be complacent, because if there's cheating in some races that are very tight, it is possible that they could steal a race or two. Next slide, please. So this is where we come in. The primary defense for their attempts to cheat to win is democratic overperformance. We can't be in a position we've been in many of the past election cycles where we're squeaking out wins by, Adam Gray winning by a few hundred votes. These kinds of examples are not, we don't want those this year, because either they did some small type of cheating that suddenly his 400 votes turned into 400 for the other guy, or if the margin's so tight that then the race is challenged in the end. So the goal is that we win by significant margins so that these results cannot be impacted by cheating or challenged. And Dan Pfeiffer, a great, very smart political strategist, former advisor to Barack Obama, and now co-host on Pod Save America, coined a phrase that I think captures it perfectly. The margins of victory must be too big to rig. So that is the emphasis for Turnout to Win. Next slide, please. Here's the challenge. There are 35 races where we need that people power, that massive volunteer energy to win for the House, and 9 races for the Senate. Now, those numbers might change a little bit. We still have some primaries that haven't happened, but more or less, this is the landscape. Next slide, please. So we decided to do some quantitative projections, because in the past, and for those of you who have been with us a long time, we've now been, Indivisible Marin has been engaged in 5 prior election cycles. And we've been saying to our volunteers pretty much, oh, please phone bank. Oh, please write postcards. Please do it a lot. Well, but we didn't give you any concrete goals. We didn't give you specific targets to work toward. And we all know that we all work better when there's a measuring stick and we know exactly what we're striving for and when we get to that success. So we tried to figure out what would be the right amount of hours for a committed volunteer to contribute, to be a part of this overall calculation. So we looked at the 35 races, we did some homework and learned that the average successful House race requires about 100,000 volunteer hours, and that the average Senate race requires about 500,000 volunteer hours, which totals to 8.5 million total volunteer hours needed to win. That's across America, right? And then we also did some homework on what is the universe of highly active volunteers right now working on elections. Not the people that just kind of do one little thing or one, but people like us, people who are willing to really spend time over the next 4 months. And that estimate is 500,000 people. So The calculation that we've made is that if each of us spends a minimum of 17 hours between July and November, we have a very good shot of taking back the House and the Senate. So I'm now going to turn it over to Veronica on our steering committee. She is going to speak much more specifically about the Turnout to Win initiative, the strategy, the process, the tools and resources that we've developed for all of you so that it can be something that you'll feel engaged and motivated to do, and also have that camaraderie that actually makes it a bit fun, because we want to make this gratifying to all of you in addition to serving our country. With that, over to Veronica.
Thank you, Susan. That was great. So I want to take a moment to reemphasize the math that Susan just laid out and the importance of the moment that we're currently in 2026. If you attend the weekly Indivisible meetings with What's the Plan meetings with Leah Greenberg and Ezra Levin, one of the questions that they've continued to get asked lately is, when is the next No Kings protest? And the explanation has been pretty clear. First, to clarify, protest is just one tactic of a much larger strategy that the No Kings Coalition is enlisting. And to be fair, protests are happening all the time. They're happening, throughout the week in different parts of the country. People are protesting outside of detention centers and outside of town halls. They're happening all the time. And a mass protest, a mass mobilization like No Kings, takes a lot of resources and time commitment to really make that work. And the No Kings Coalition right now at this moment in time is saying that'll happen. But what we really need to be focused on right now in this moment in time is to galvanize that people power energy and convert that protest power to organized electoral power, and do so in a way that's going to drive impact and give us the results that we need. So in a way, when you think about it, that protest power, that No Kings galvanization of energy is the organized electoral power, is that protest power right now. That's how we want to think about it. Next slide, please. So our strategy and approach for Turnout to Win is to think about it like this. We want to pull together in the same direction and collectively own the ground with organized, targeted, and tactical actions that are going to drive that impact. And those tactical actions, as Susan spoke to earlier, are the tried and trues that work. We know canvassing, phone banking, postcarding, and inviting others to join us work. We also want to define measurable goals with tangible targets, and we've developed a tracking tool and other check-ins, support check-ins, and other tools with real-time updates to keep us focused. And then we also have created a space for coaching and community where we can share our learnings and have relational building, learn how to have those get out the vote conversations, and bring others into the fold. Next slide, please. So this is where we've done our work and have created a Turnout to Win toolkit. Next slide, please. This toolkit is comprised of a tracker scorecard, again, community and coaching weekly calls called Turnout to Win Tuesdays that are going to be led by our very own Lori Friedman, who's going to give us real-time updates, coaching, again, community with all of us, and feedback on what we can do and how we can learn to make sure that we are really having those strong conversations and get out the vote. We've also developed a campaign button to wear out and about and have that be an opening to a conversation about, hey, what's Turnout to Win? Yeah, ask me how we can get out the vote. We've even created a nice little kit of social media promotion files where you can post a story or an Instagram carousel on your Instagram or Facebook to bring and invite others into join our little movement, or our big movement, I should say. Next slide, please. I want to spend a second here to talk a little bit about the tracker scorecard. As we've laid out, starting next Sunday, we're going to have 17 weeks until midterms to do this work. And if you think about it, 17 hours over 17 weeks, that's averaging 1 hour per week. And that's going to deliver 17 hours of electoral impact. So if every individual commits to at least an average of 1 hour per week, we can collectively support the creation of a blue wave. And again, this is average. So say, for example, oh, well, I'm going to be on vacation for a week and I'm not going to be able to do anything. Hey, that's okay. Guess what? A 2-hour phone bank the following week, you've done 2 weeks of work. So you think about it that way. We are providing a framework for you to have the flexibility to do the time that you can over the next 17 weeks to deliver that impact from start to finish. Next slide, please. And we've created some fun tiering too. So if you commit to that 17 hours, you become a democracy defender. If you double your impact, hey, you become a fascism fighter. And if you even triple that impact, you can become a Trump crusher. So, if I'm thinking, hey, I can do, can I commit to a 2-hour phone bank a week and maybe an hour of postcarding? That's 3 hours of work. Yeah, I can do that. And that triples my impact. That makes me a Trump crusher. And I've technically done the work of 2 people. So, and then if you even earn even more points, if you say you've invited 1 or 2 other people to join and they've started the Turnout to Win team, you've even increased your impact even more. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm going to now turn it over to Lori Friedman to talk about our voter outreach tactics.
Thank you, Veronica. Hi, everybody. I want to cover the nuts and bolts of what this actually looks like, sort of in groups of 3. There's 3 major tactics: canvassing, which is not knocking on doors; phone banking, which is now done virtually with the computer platforms, very user-friendly, and your privacy is completely protected. You don't need to use your phone; and then postcarding. There are 3 levels of each one of these tactics as far as how they work. Candidates don't do their own voter outreach in using these 3 tactics anymore. They usually outsource it. And for most places, including California, that is the state party. They live at the top. They own the lists. They pay for the platforms. They're funded professional organizations. And here they cover all the canvassing and phone banking. The candidates outsource that for the most part. And that is the case for most of the United States. Postcarding, there are several organizations. We use Activate America here because they are the only one that works in California, one of the oldest and best respected postcarding organizations in the country. They work from the top, but they don't do the training and they don't provide the avenue for the volunteers to come in. So there's a middle level of hosts. And those are the groups that run the phone banks, that train the volunteers, that partner with the top groups, but are volunteer friendly. And that's where we come in and work under their guidance. And for us here in Northern California, that would be the Bay Area Coalition. And they partner with our party to run our phone banks and most of our canvasses. In Southern California, there's a group called Grassroots Dems HQ, and there's a few others scattered around the state. But for the most part, it's a centralized top-down situation now that avoids duplication and avoids gaps forming in voters that we contact. The unions also are very strong here in California, and they help, especially at the end. And then at the bottom are us. We're the ones that do the work. We're the ones that knock on the doors, that make the phone calls and write the postcards. And we do that through those host organizations and their programming. And we do this in 3 different times. Pre-primary, we work to engage our voters. We do this as early as possible in the year, and we do this around issues. We don't endorse a particular candidate in a primary, but we just encourage our voters to vote in primaries because primary voters are more likely to vote in general elections. We're past that now. Now we're into the second stage of an election year. We're in the general election. And now we start talking about candidates, connecting our voters to the candidates around issues and asking for their support. If we do these first 2 things right, by the time early voting starts, which is October 5th here, we have the voters that we need to win. Now we need to get them to the polls. And that's that get out the vote, the GOTV time, when we are helping people access their ballots, answering their questions about voting, helping them make a voting plan. And in this day and age, making sure that it's a secure one. The one thing that we don't do that's crossed out is persuasion. We do not need to talk to Republicans. anywhere in California. We have the voters in all of the districts we're working in this year to win. We just need to get them to the polls. And that is the case for the majority of the House districts and the Senate races across the country. There are some places in places like Iowa and Texas where we will need to talk to some Republicans and get them to cross over. But today's data systems and statistical work identify those softer Republicans and those democratically leaning independents. So we don't need to talk to Republicans. We are talking to friendly voters this year. Next slide, please. There's a few things we need to make sure are happening so that we have the impact that we want. We want to make sure that we're talking to the right voters, and that means not you and me. We need to be talking to the people that don't vote very often, those low to mid propensity voters, those voters that aren't engaged, because all of the races that we need to win are close. The margins are thin. It's the side that turns out these voters the best, these marginal voters that are going to win. So that's where we want the majority of our focus to be on. And we want to make sure that we're doing this early and repeated and using multiple tactics. Research has shown over and over again that the earlier a voter is contacted and the more times they are, the more likely they are to win. Voters decide very early in the year if they're going to vote at all and which side they're going to vote for, long before they even make up their mind about a candidate. We need to take advantage of everything this country is going through right now to make sure that they're open to voting for us. If we wait until September and October, it's way too late. So now is the time. We've been doing it since January, and now we need to step it up. We also need to make sure we have the right messaging. These are voters that vote based on kitchen table issues. They vote on what's happening in their lives. So we want to have those conversations on the phones and at the door. And we want to identify voters that will respond to a certain issue and make sure that when we're writing to them with postcards that we're writing about the issues they care about. And then lastly, we need to make sure that we vote early. And it's not just because we want to see those long lines of people at the voting booths and hear about this increased turnout, but it's essential that we have as small a list as possible in those last few weeks. So we want to move everybody off and get everybody voting as soon as possible so that we can identify those truly undecided voters and those voters that are lazy and aren't getting to the polls. We only have limited time and limited volunteers, and we want to make sure that people vote early, and then our list is a lot more workable. But even if we do all four of these things, the last is the most important. The tactics work, but in order to create a winning margin with these tactics, we have to reach a critical mass of voters. We have to get a large amount of voters contacted, and the only way to do that is us. Good candidates can move a lot of people, but it's the volunteers that create the voter turnout. Next slide, please. People ask me, well, does it really work? It really does. This is long, standard, excellent, strong research that's been done over decades that show that canvassing is the gold standard. It's about 7 to 9% of voters that we canvass will vote because of that canvass. Phone banking, about 2 to 4%, and postcarding is a little bit lower. The bolded number is the number we reach when we check all the boxes on the previous slide, when we talk to the right voters and we're messaging at the right time, and we reach a great deal of them. We will reach those numbers. Next slide, please. I want to give a few examples of how this works here in California, because we have a very centralized, very well-developed voter outreach program here, as do many states. And a great example that we always toss around is Adam Gray, who ran for the Congress in 2024 from a Central Valley District, California 13. We started our early repetitive voter contact in January of 2024, and we followed those voters all the way through till the end. And those voters that got early, regular contacts at the door and by phone voted at a 9% higher increase. We wrote almost 300,000 postcards to his district alone, and there's only about 750,000 people in a district here. So a tremendous amount of postcards created at least almost 2,000 extra votes for him by postcarding alone, and we know that he won by just 187 votes. Similar statistics for Derek Tran in California 45, and in George Whiteside's race, we took a negative 6-point deficit in 2022 to a 6-point win. He had a 12-point swing in an election where we lost voter share across the country to Republicans, including here. So tremendously successful work here when we had the volunteers. This was the largest volunteer turnout ever here in California, was 2024. We flipped 3 seats and saved a 4th that nobody thought we were going to be able to win at the beginning of the year. So it does work. At that point, we thought we would just put everything away for 2 years and bring it all back in 2026. But then Proposition 50 hit. And this was another great example of what we can do here when we work together. We basically pulled everything back out that we did. We resurrected our phone banks, our canvassing, postcarding, everything just, we plugged in a different message, but used the same model. We had 10 weeks to win this election. And like today, it wasn't going to be enough to win it by 1 point. We had to have a landslide. We had to show the country that we were 100% ahead of this and wanted this in our state. Only a third of our voters at the beginning in August, when we started the work, were a yes. More importantly, 42% of people in California were undecided. We attacked that 42%, and you can see in the next 3 months how we flipped the polling, brought it down to just 2% of undecided people on election day. And the final result, 64 to 36, that's a typical result for any Democrat winning in a statewide election, like a governor or a senator. But the most impressive number of all was that in 10 weeks, we created a 43% turnout. That's higher than the primary that we just had a few weeks ago. It's the highest turnout we've ever had in a special election and higher than some midterm elections in our past 10 years. So the work that we all did, and some of those people are going to talk today about that work, it did work. So I'm going to turn this over right now to a panel of 3 volunteers that are going to talk about their experiences. And the first one is Kate, and she is a postcarder. She's been with us for a couple of years now. And she's going to talk about her experience postcarding.
Well, that's cool. Hi, my name is Kate, and in 2024, I wanted to do something, volunteer somehow to help stop Trump from winning the election. So I felt like I wanted to do something that was local and in person, not something that was electronic. And I found Indivisible Marin, and I started going to the Tuesday morning postcarding events at Panera. And being kind of a little bit of an introvert, I would, get the packet and open it up and start my postcarding and say hi to a few people. And I would just kind of hunker down and get it all done. But then I gradually got a little bit more courageous and joined other tables and started talking to people. And everybody was very welcoming. And I enjoyed meeting all the new people and the camaraderie. And the feeling of community and the shared goals was just really right there. And I still look forward to every Tuesday morning going over to Panera and meeting up with my group and writing cards. And the people that I know now are my friends, and we catch up on our lives, and we, talk about politics and current events and everything and support each other. And bottom line, if I hadn't found Indivisible and started doing postcards and kind of came out of my shell, and I wouldn't have met these great folks. So I'm going to continue doing it. Thank you. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm supposed to introduce Matt. Matt is part of the steering committee, and he will now talk about canvassing.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Can everyone hear me okay? Can you guys hear me? No?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. Hey, everybody. My name is Matt Schmidt. I've been dabbling with Get Out the Vote campaigns and participation and help for the past 10 years or so. I started with some postcarding during Hillary's campaign and did some postcarding and texting during Biden's first campaign. And thought it was great. Had a great time. Felt like I was doing my part. I'm contributing. But during the Harris campaign, I became pretty alarmed at how the polls were showing that Trump could actually win. And I wanted to step up my game a little bit In California, I was convinced that it was important for us to focus on our closest swing districts, and that was kind of a focus for blue states, is to make sure that we focused on winning as many House seats as we could, and defeating Republican incumbents. And I was made aware of an opportunity to walk neighborhoods in the Central Valley in California 13, which is now Adam Gray's district, and you heard Lori speak about that a little bit. And I thought, well, this is a little more scary than texting, and I can't believe that I'm actually going to do this, but I felt like it was too important not to. So I cajoled my wife one morning into driving out to Modesto and meeting a group of canvassers who trained us. It was a group of canvassing trainers from the Democratic Party and the Bay Area Coalition. They spent 45 minutes to an hour just giving us materials, helping us practice scripts that we could use with folks whose doors we knocked on, setting up our canvassing app so we could track the houses that we communicated with. And I got to tell you, by the end of that hour or so, we felt pretty prepared to go out and conquer the world. The great thing is, as Lori mentioned, is that they let us know that we weren't going to knock on the doors of registered Republicans. It was only Democrats and independents and folks that seemed like maybe they were leaning in the direction of voting Democratic. So that was really nice. You didn't have to confront a lot of really angry people that hated Democrats. And I got to tell you, it was a revelation for me. It was so much better than I had ever expected. First of all, about 2/3 of all the doors you knock on, no one answers the door. So you're not talking to anyone. You're just usually taking a leave behind a flyer or something and putting it on their door. And you speak to maybe 15 or 20 people a day, depending on how many doors you knock on. And by and large, they're pretty supportive of you. You're trained to, at first, just listen to them talk. And people really, really appreciate just being listened to. A lot of people just wanted to vent about their frustration with politics or discuss local issues that were important to them, crime or, roads with potholes or whatever it may be. And then you find a little bit of time at the end to sort of persuade them to actually vote, ask them how they're intending to vote. Do they know when they're supposed to vote? Those sorts of things. And you try and get them to actually go to the polls. And it was just really enlightening. You meet people with diverse backgrounds, diverse perspectives. You see a piece of America that you just wouldn't normally see or interact with, particularly here in Marin County. We're kind of in a little bubble here. And I have to say, canvassing quickly became my favorite get out the vote tactic. I do it every chance I can get now. I think there were maybe a small handful of folks that disagreed with me when I knocked on their doors, but most everyone was really respectful and appreciated that we cared enough to speak to them directly. So I would strongly encourage, if you're interested at all in taking it to the next level, consider canvassing. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Betty Von Glahn, and for about 5 years, I co-led the phone banks at Indy Marin. And oddly, I decided in talking to you today that I was going to focus on two of the reasons people cite most frequently for not wanting to phone bank. And the first one is they say it just doesn't make a difference. People hang up on you, or they're not at home, you're leaving voicemail messages. But at every phone bank, you're going to have some conversations. You will at least have a few. And just one of those conversations can make a huge difference. You can turn out one more voter. You educate voters, giving them polling place locations and hours, telling them when early voting starts, where are the drop boxes. That's a very critical part of all of this. And a single conversation can make a difference in history. in 2023, we were making calls in Wisconsin for the state Supreme Court election. And after Roe v. Wade was overturned, Wisconsin reverted to an 1849 law that was banning abortion in almost all instances. So they were having an election for a justice. One justice very much supported that 1849 law. And the other candidate was Janet Protasewicz. And she vowed publicly that if she were elected as a justice, she would overturn that 1849 law. So one day I'm making my phone calls and an elderly man answers and I start my spiel and he cuts me right off and he says, I'm not voting. He said, I've had it with politicians. They're all alike. They promise you everything. They do nothing. And I'm just not going to vote anymore. And so I said, well, is there a particular issue that matters to you? And he very quickly said, abortion rights, because I have daughters. And I said, well, that is a key issue in this election. And so we talked back and forth. And as Matt said, people really appreciate the time you take to talk to them and to listen to them, and for our conversation to turn toward what mattered to him, which was abortion rights. Anyway, that phone call made a difference. He said, I'm going to go out to vote and I'll vote for her. And he said, and I'm going to talk to my wife and I'm pretty sure she will too. So one call changed that vote, and one vote is so important it can change history. In 1920, one vote gave women the right to vote. And in 2025, Janet Protasewicz voted to overturn that 1849 law, and it passed by one vote. So phone banking is crucial. Yes, you'll have some hangups, but it's not a showstopper. The showstopper is the people you talk to and the people you turn out to vote and make voting easier for them by educating them. But the second reason that people give most often is it's just so uncomfortable talking to strangers. And we all get that. We've all been there. We're still there. Yeah, there are moments it's uncomfortable, but we have to remember how uncomfortable we're going to be if we lose the midterms and Donald Trump's power goes unchecked for 2 more years. So our country needs us, as Susan said, and phone banking is something we can all do, and it does make a difference. So I really hope you'll step up and give it a try. Thanks. And now we're going to go back to Lori. She's going to talk about the Turnout to Win section of the Indy Marin website.
Betty. I just want to add a couple things there that I've heard recently about the power of phone banking and canvassing. I was on a call with our state party and learned that on Adam Gray's campaign in his office, there's a bulletin board. And on that bulletin board are printed out all of the comments that we get from our voters when we talk to them on the phones and when we canvass. And we make those notes on a computer program and send them back to the campaign. It's a two-way street. And those comments are being read by the campaign. And that's how they're forming a lot of their messaging. So yes, it's important to talk to the voters, but we're also bringing really important information back. And also, every time you talk to a voter and have one of those conversations, they're telling their friends and family about that conversation. Like, oh, somebody from the Democratic Party spent 20 minutes at my door and we talked about job opportunities in the Central Valley or lack of health care. And so what your one experience with one voter really does get shared and grows because people talk, especially at times like this. So what I want to do next is go to our website and run through briefly how to sign up for things. It's a simple website. It's indivisibleMarin.org. A simple Google search will bring it up. And this is our homepage. At the top, there's a red band. These are the latest breaking news and opportunities there. Today, and I encourage you all to go through the website. There's a lot of good information there. But today, I want to focus just on what we can do right now to turn out and win. And the elect page on the navigation bar brings up 4 different pages. There's a donation page to help guide donations, and we're not pushing donations, but if you're interested, there's some guidelines there. two major pages, winning the House and winning the Senate. If you click on winning the House, it takes you, there's a lot of information on this page. I'm going to just briefly hit the high points. There are introductory paragraphs about how many seats we need to flip and where we need to flip them. These are the battleground House states: Arizona, California, Colorado, Florida, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Texas, Virginia, Wisconsin, and North Carolina. And these are the states that will decide who wins the House this year. Every option that we have, those three: phone banking, canvassing, postcarding, all the training is provided. So we welcome newbies. Newbies are our favorite. Every time you come to an event and you're the first time you've done that, you will not be the only one. There will be plenty of people there. No experience is needed. If you can commit to that 1 hour a week, we ask you to join the team. And then here are the specific links. And I'm not going to flip around with every single one because it's a little chaotic, I think, for people to watch that. But just so that you know, here's a list of all the incumbents in those states, those incumbents that are in really tight battles to keep their seat. And then these are our challengers, those red to blue candidates that we're hoping will help gain those precious seats that we need in order to take back control. And then there'll be a section on how to canvass for those candidates in the House. If you live in California and you are in the northern part of the state, you will be working in the Central Valley, and there's a link there to all of the canvasses in the Central Valley. They are every weekend between now and November. If you're from Southern California, there is a link here to all the Southern California canvases. Everything is within a few hours. Some are day long, some are overnights, and we have some weekends. Lots of choices. They will help you with both housing and transportation. Sometimes towards the end, we'll have some stipends available also. You'll get all the support that you need in order to do that, and all the training will be provided. If you are here today and you are not in California, there are canvases for every single candidate that is running at any level across the country. And the best way to find those in your area is to go to Mobilize and use that search engine and filter down to your area, and everything will pop right up. For phone banking, it is the single most important thing that you can do for the House or for the Senate. We can all do it. In California, our phone banks are Tuesday, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays right now. We will be working in the 4 congressional districts, 13, 22, 45, and 48. These are the battleground, the closest races. 2 of those are holds: Adam Gray in 13 and Derek Tran in 45. And then we have 2 opportunities to flip. These are through Proposition 50. We got Randy Villegas in 22 and Marnie Van Wilpert in 48. So 4 great candidates and 3 evenings and 1 Sunday. We will be adding more, but this is where we're at right now. If you are here and you are from outside California, you can certainly use that same Mobilize search engine and filter down. But the DCCC has a national phone bank. It's on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 5:30 Eastern time. And these are really fun if you like to phone bank, because you're going to be in a different district every week. And sometimes you'll have multiple districts to choose from, and you'll be with people from all over the country sharing your experiences. It's very fun. It's very energizing. I highly recommend them. If you want to postcard, we postcard through Activate America. You have a couple of options. You can write from home at any time on your own schedule. You can create your account with Activate America. They use a system called Sincere that distributes addresses and scripts to you by email. You will need to collect your own supplies, and there's a link here for how to do that. If you're in California, we want you to register with us in our Sincere portal, because we are going to be focusing on 22 and 48. Those are the 2 closest races here. And we're going to be offering the ones that need the most amount of help each week. So we have a huge program. We have over 9,000 people that postcard with us, and we want to make sure that we're in the place that needs the help, because we can close a gap pretty fast. If you're a national volunteer and you're here from somewhere else besides California, you can sign up directly with Activate America, because they will be offering additional outside House races. Right now, they're in Arizona, Virginia, and Washington. So that's one way to postcard. The other way is to hold a party, to do it yourself. You can sign up to join our postcarding host program. We have somebody that will reach out and help you if you need it. But basically, it's just requesting extra addresses and zip and scripts, and hold your own event over a glass of wine or a cup of coffee in the morning. And we had about a dozen people working through us in 2024. and they wrote thousands and thousands of postcards through their own parties. And then lastly, the third way to work with us is if you are here in Marin County, we have 2 events on weekly Tuesday mornings at Panera Bread and the Vintage Oaks Shopping Center in Novato. Joy Martin, she's our postcarding host there. She's been doing this for years. She's actually here tonight and can answer any questions you might have about that. And it's $5 for a packet of 10 addresses, and people sit together and write. Been doing it for years. New people come every week, and everyone's more than welcome to join us. Third Wednesday evening, we work in San Rafael doing the same thing at the Pond Farm Brewery on 4th Street. So that's the House, and it's very similar for the Senate. We need to flip 4 additional seats and hold seats in Georgia and Michigan and New Hampshire. 9 battleground states in all. We have flip opportunities in Alaska, Iowa, Maine, North Carolina, Ohio, and Texas. So hopefully out of that, we will gain 4 new seats. Same thing, commit to 1+ hour a week. Maybe you'll do an hour for the Senate one week and an hour for the House the next, but lots of opportunities. If you live in one of those 9 states, that certainly is a top priority for you because you can canvass there easily. I would suggest that you sign up on your candidate's website and they will get you hooked up pretty quickly. The only place we don't have a candidate yet for the Senate is Michigan because their primary is in August. But if you are like most of us, we don't live anywhere near any of those states, phone banking is the most important thing that we can do. And for those of us that have phone banked for a while, I love phone banking in the Senate. I love getting outside of California once in a while and getting to know candidates and voters in other areas. It's a lot of fun. These are the ones that are available right now. You can sign up directly. Please note that these are not in Pacific time. These are in the time zone of the location of the state. So all of them, almost all of them have them, and I'll be updating this very frequently as more get added. Postcarding is the same as it does work for the House, except that you'll just pick that Senate campaign. We will always have 2 Senate races available on top of our House races in California, so you can win both and go back and forth. Right now, we are working for Roy Cooper in North Carolina and James Tallarico in Texas. And if you are in any of those other states, as they start offering more and more Activate America, go ahead and you can sign up directly with them. And then the rest is the same postcarding. You can do that, postcard parties, and Marin County Volunteers. Joy offers both Senate and House campaigns over the course of a year in her events. Lastly, I just want to go to this top page here. This is a summary of what Veronica and Susan have talked about today. How incredibly important it is that we all jump in. What Betty said about it can be a little uncomfortable to do something new. It's so much more uncomfortable to lose. And I just picture what I'm going to feel like on the day after the election. And I need to know that I've done absolutely everything possible that I can do, not only to win, but to win by a huge margin, like we were able to do in Proposition 50 here in California. We don't want there to be any doubt that this is what we want as a country. Join the team and get the regular updates. If that's not something that you're comfortable with yet, you can still continue to just do this on your own. And again, these will take you to those opportunities. I'm going to stop my share and I'm going to turn this back over to Susan. Do a little bit of Q&A here. And
thank you, Lori. So I just want to underscore the invitation that Lori gave to all of you to join the Turnout to Win team. What she just presented on those web pages, I'm sure looked like a lot because there are a lot of opportunities. Those pages are ones you should just kind of scroll through in your free time, locate races that interest you, locate tactics that interest you, and they'll be continually updated. But even more importantly, we're going to be hosting weekly Turnout to Win meetings. Veronica mentioned this, but just to elaborate a little bit, this is a chance to feel truly bonded with the team where everyone comes together. Lori might give some new opportunity updates. We may have some guest speakers, but we'll also be sharing amongst ourselves our wins. You know, hey, I was canvassing on Sunday and I actually spoke to 50 voters, or, you know, hey, I was phone banking. So kind of like a support group, but hopefully a little bit more fun. And we can share our scorecards like, hey, I'm already up to 17 hours. I think I'm going to go for the next tier. So it's like being part of a team. And we really want to foster that. So we're really hoping that all of you will join the team, take it seriously, want to be interactive. So I think somebody, but I'll do it again. I'm going to put right now in the chat the link to the primary Turnout to Win page. And I'm going to just pause for a minute or so. I'd like it if all of you would click on that link, go to that link, find where it says join the Turnout to Win team. And if you feel ready, if you feel inspired by this presentation today, please click on that link and sign up right now. It will make all of us feel great to see after this meeting that our numbers of the Turnout to Win team surged. If you feel like you want to give it more thought, it's totally fine and understandable, but maybe take that link and email it to yourself with a subject line, make a decision by Wednesday, right? Like make this actionable, because it's great when people come to these meetings, but the purpose of the meetings is then to go on to the action. And we really need large numbers of you to make that commitment to go on to the action. And we guarantee we're going to be there supporting you every step through our meetings. We set up a special turnout to win at gmail.com email address. There will be as much hand holding as you want or need, and it will feel very collaborative and what's the word? Collegial. So hopefully some of you, while I've been chattering on, are signing up as we speak. And at this point, I do see it's the top of the hour. So apologies for not finishing up the presentation and allowing time for questions. We will stay on to do the Q&A. If any of you need to jump off, feel free. If you'd like to stay on for questions, we'd love to have you. So with that, I will see if I can find the document. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, so we had a couple of questions that I thought were very astute about, in our comments, or specifically in my comments, I kept referring to Democrats, right? And people are asking, well, what about Democratic Socialists? What about Green Party people? What about independents declined to state? Of course, we're all a Big Ten. So as long as people aren't voting Republican, they are in our, any Democratic Socialist candidates, for example, we would want to support in the same way we would support a Democrat. And in the same way, people who are registered as a Democratic Socialist would be getting those door knocks and phone calls. I do want to ask Lori to comment a bit more, because I know it's very nuanced how voters are targeted for calls, for door knocks. And I think Lori can be more specific than I can be about whether or not voters, say, that are registered as independent or declined to state are on these call lists. So Lori, could you elaborate?
Sure. So whether or not you vote is public record, not who you vote for. So it's easy to go for the campaigns to go into voting records and pull out people that vote all the time, which is probably most of us on the call. So those people are not on a list. They look for people that maybe only vote in general elections, but don't vote in midterms. So they want those irregular voters. Those are very easy to identify. And then because our browsing history is public and other things about us are public, it is I've heard of somewhere between 80 and 90% accurate to identify whether you are a Democratically leaning voter or a Republican leaning voter. If you are declined to state, here we call those no party preference voters. So it's highly accurate. So yes, we will be talking to many, many NPP voters, but they will be the ones that are leaning towards us. And in the Senate races where we need some Republican crossover, like in places like Iowa and Texas, we can identify even the softer leaning Republicans. It's by their browsing histories within about 80 to 90% accuracy. So you won't be picking up the phone and talking to someone who's hardcore MAGA. It just won't happen. Even in Republican leaning states, it's the technology is extremely sophisticated. So hopefully that answers that question, but it's more how often you vote, because there's a lot of independent voters that vote every single election, and we're not going to be bothering to talking to them either. It's the ones that aren't decided yet that we need to reach.
Thanks, Lori. Sorry, there's a few questions expressing concerns about canvassing, concerns about phone banking. Things like, I wouldn't want someone to knock on my door. It's intrusive, so I don't think other people are going to open their doors. Or the same for phone calls. I don't like it when people call me. I really want to encourage, number one, I often find that the people that have those objections feel very firmly about them, and their objections have led them to never try the tactics. So they've held back because they have these concerns. And it's a bit unfortunate because the real way to convince yourself that it's not true that many people find these tactics intrusive is to do it and to experience the people that say, thank you so much for calling. And I'm not quite sure where to go to find my ballot box, or could you explain to me about, this candidate's position on something? The people we contact treat us more like we're doing a public service. And again, that ties back to civic duty and Lori expressed that these calls aren't about persuasion. We're not calling, independents who, generally vote Republican and trying to sway them to vote Democrat. This is very much about contacting people who are aligned with, the Democratic Party or the Democratic Socialist Party, and answering their questions about how and when and where they can vote. That is a huge part of it. And also listening to their concerns, as Betty described, the voter that wanted to talk about abortion and how that matters to that person. And it ended up being a conversation where they actually moved in terms of who they were voting for. We're living in a very polarized society now. There's a lot of distrust. A lot of people out there are very isolated, especially you get into rural areas or seniors. They feel alone. And a phone call to someone like that is often extremely welcome. And they welcome that personal connection, the same as canvassing. And it is true that these interactive conversations are the most effective. So it's hard to try to overcome these objections, when knowing that this is actually how we're going to most impact elections. So I would just say, if you're someone who has never tried canvassing, please try it. And of course, if you have a physical limitation or you don't have a car or any other logistical reasons, then of course that's not a good fit for you. But if you could do it, give it a try, give phone banking a try, and it can be gratifying to us to have conversations with people who are very different, to talk to a rural voter in Mississippi. It brings us all closer, and it really can be a positive experience. So I just would like everyone to try to open up to the opportunity. And if you've never tried it, or you tried it 10 years ago, you made phone calls for Obama and it was a bad experience, try again, because the technology has changed. The targeting of voters is much more specific. And so we have many more conversations.
And I want to add to that the dialers now are predictive. So you're only going to be connected to a live voter. There's no more sitting around waiting for 20 minutes for the phone to pick up. It's pretty fast. And that's why we have centralized big phone banks now, because it drives the dialer faster and we're going to reach more voters. So a typical 2 hour and a half phone bank, you'll probably talk to 20 people. And those 20 people are going to talk to, each one of them are going to be talking to 5 or 10. So you're really reaching hundreds of people in a phone bank. And I've been doing this now for several years. I've never seen people want to talk more than they want to talk this year. I have not had the problem at all of people not wanting to talk. And yes, you're always going to get a few hangups. That's fine. That's neither here nor there. But the people that pick up the phone, they have something to say and they want to be heard. And it's been a pretty empowering conversations right now. People are not sitting back, and that's why we're seeing this huge turnout everywhere we are. People know that this is important, and they want their candidates to know what they're thinking. And it's sometimes you can't honestly get off the phone with these people. I mean, I see Sue Ika's here. She's one of my phone bank people. Sometimes you just let them talk, because you almost feel like a therapist sometimes. So it's very empowering. It's a lot of fun, and you do form these communities over time of people that come together every week, that are very dedicated. So highly, highly recommend. You have to go to one to realize that it's nothing like you think it's going to be. And every phone bank is got a breakout room for people that have never done it before. So you're not going to be thrown in there with people that have been doing this for years. You're going to have your own room with everybody who's brand new, and a couple of trainers in there to work with you and get you trained. It takes about 20 minutes. And if you still have questions, they'll take you into a private one-on-one breakout room with you and do even more if you feel like you just need a little bit more time. So they're very well staffed and more than enough people to get you started. And then the next week, if you're not ready to be in that independent room, that experienced room, you can go right back and have more training. So it's very individualized. And all of the trainers have been doing this for years and years and years. So I highly recommend. You'll be up and running and feel like a pro in at least 1 or 2 phone banks at the minimum.
Yeah. So a couple more questions. Holly's asking, when can we expect to see this, a recording of this meeting on our YouTube channel? So thank you for asking that, Holly. It gives me a chance to let you all know that it will be on our YouTube channel, and it's a video that you can share with any of your friends that you think might be interested in joining the team. I would say probably 3 or 4 days. But what we will do as soon as the recording is ready is email all of the people who signed up. So you'll receive it when it's available. And Heather's asking, when will canvassing for Randy Villegas start? Has it started, Lori?
Yeah, it's already started.
Yes. So Heather, if you go to the page called Winning the House that Lori walked us through, and go to the canvassing section. There will be links for signing up for canvassing for Randy Villegas. There were some questions from Gina about specifics around the elections, like the Marin elections, and actually what are contingency plans if there are problems or poll workers, etc. I'm going to punt on those questions because I think it's a bit early, but be aware that Indivisible Marin, all groups like ours will be having a very careful eye as the elections get closer on any signs of disruption. And we will be enlisting all of you in any action necessary to either protest what's happening or to act as witnesses, basically anything. We will stay engaged on that, but it's really just too early at this point to speculate about the specifics. And I think that is the end of our questions. So thanks to all of you for sticking around for that part of the meeting. And we are really grateful for your time, and we really hope that we'll be seeing you at Turnout Tuesday meetings and hearing from your experiences as you're racking up your volunteer hours. We got to do this, everyone. We have to take back the House. We really, 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 really want to take back the Senate, and we're going to do our damnedest to do both with your help. Thanks, everyone.